Spider-Man: Brand New Day is dominating theaters, crossing the billion-dollar mark, while DC's Supergirl is facing one setback after another. The theatrical run fell far short of expectations. The digital release is struggling to gain traction, and now the spotlight is turning toward James Gunn's leadership at DC Studios. But instead of admitting the movie simply failed to connect with audiences, Gunn believes there are completely different reasons behind the disappointment. His latest comments have sparked an entirely new debate, and what he said about fans, superhero fatigue, and the future of the DC universe has only made the situation even more controversial. So, let's break down everything that's happening. Now that Supergirl's theatrical run has officially come to an end, the conversation surrounding the film isn't slowing down. In fact, it's becoming even more intense. The movie is no longer just being discussed because of its disappointing box office performance. It's now facing criticism over its early digital release, where many observers believe the film has struggled to generate the level of interest Warner Brothers was hoping for. And that has created an even bigger question. If audiences weren't willing to support the movie in theaters, can it really find success through digital rentals, purchases, and eventually streaming? Many people remain skeptical. Some critics argue that even viewers who decide to watch the movie at home may not finish it, claiming the story simply doesn't hold their attention long enough to keep them engaged. Whether that's a fair assessment or not, it's become a major part of the online conversation surrounding the film. At the same time, the comparison everyone seems to be making is impossible to ignore. While Supergirl continues struggling to build momentum, Spider-Man: Brand New Day has become one of the biggest success stories of the year. The film has already crossed the billion-dollar mark worldwide, creating a dramatic contrast between Marvel's current momentum and the difficult position DC Studios now finds itself in. For many fans, the comparison goes beyond simple box office numbers. It's becoming a direct comparison between two different creative directions: Marvel's current strategy versus James Gunn and Peter Safran's vision for the new DC universe. Naturally, that has placed even more pressure on everyone involved with Supergirl, including James Gunn, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, lead actress Millie Alcock, and screenwriter Anna Nogueira. As the financial gap between the two films continues to grow, questions surrounding DC's future have only become louder. And that's where James Gunn's latest response enters the picture. Rather than focusing solely on the disappointing financial results, Gunn has been explaining why he believes Supergirl failed to reach expectations in the first place. One thing that's become very clear is that Gunn continues to stand firmly behind the creative team. Despite the criticism directed toward the screenplay, he has repeatedly defended writer Anna Nogueira, praising her work and continuing to support her involvement in future DC projects, including Wonder Woman and Teen Titans. That unwavering support has surprised many fans, especially considering how heavily the screenplay itself has been criticized since the film's release. But here's where the discussion takes another turn. As Spider-Man: Brand New Day continues breaking records around the world, many commentators believe its success has unintentionally placed even more attention on Supergirl's struggles. Instead of simply discussing one movie's performance, audiences are now comparing two competing superhero franchises moving in completely different directions. And according to many observers, those comparisons have become increasingly difficult for DC Studios to ignore. That brings us to James Gunn's latest public comments, remarks that have quickly become one of the most talked about developments surrounding the future of the DC universe. According to James Gunn, the disappointing performance of Supergirl isn't something that can be explained by a single reason. Instead, he believes several factors came together and created the perfect storm. Gunn argued that one of the biggest obstacles the film faced was the online reaction long before many people had even seen it. In his view, a vocal group of internet users shaped the conversation early, creating a wave of negativity that influenced public perception throughout the movie's release. He also pointed to another issue that has become a common topic across Hollywood over the past few years: superhero fatigue. Gunn suggested that audiences today simply aren't rushing to theaters for every comic book movie the way they once did. According to him, the genre itself has become far more challenging, making it difficult for even major superhero releases to reach the box office numbers they might have achieved several years ago. But that wasn't all. He also claimed that part of the criticism aimed at Supergirl wasn't actually about the movie itself. Instead, Gunn argued that some of the backlash came from people who had already decided to reject the project because it centered on a female superhero. He suggested that online discussions were filled with unfair labels, exaggerated accusations, and personal attacks that distracted from the film's actual story. Gunn also pushed back against claims that Supergirl was driven by political messaging, insisting that those descriptions were completely inaccurate. In his opinion, many of the narratives circulating online spread quickly without reflecting what the movie was actually trying to accomplish. When it came to the screenplay, Gunn didn't hesitate to defend it. He once again praised Ana Nogueira's work, describing her script as one he continues to believe in despite the criticism. More importantly, he made it clear that his confidence in her hasn't changed, confirming that she remains involved with upcoming DC projects, including Wonder Woman. From Gunn's perspective, the screenplay wasn't the problem. Instead, he believes the combination of online backlash, changing audience habits, and declining interest in superhero films created an environment where Supergirl simply couldn't reach the numbers the studio had hoped for. He also addressed another topic that's become increasingly common whenever a major blockbuster underperforms: the growing number of self-proclaimed financial experts across social media. Gunn argued that many people are making bold conclusions about the movie's financial performance without having access to the actual numbers behind the project. According to him, only Warner Brothers and DC Studios know the complete financial picture, making outside estimates little more than speculation. He also emphasized that judging a film solely by theatrical revenue ignores the bigger business model modern studios now rely on, including digital sales, premium rentals, home entertainment, licensing, and streaming. But perhaps Gunn's most controversial comment centered around the relationship between filmmakers and fans. He suggested that creative decisions shouldn't be driven by internet reactions. In his view, once filmmakers begin chasing every online opinion, they risk losing the creative vision that made the project unique in the first place. Instead, Gunn believes directors and writers should trust their instincts and tell the story they believe in, even if sections of the fan base strongly disagree. He ended his remarks by once again expressing confidence in Millie Alcock, praising her performance and describing her as one of the key figures in DC's future. According to Gunn, audiences will better understand why she's such an important part of the new DC universe once Man of Tomorrow arrives. But while Gunn remains convinced that those explanations tell the full story, not everyone agrees, because another argument has been gaining momentum online, one that directly challenges the idea that superhero fatigue is responsible for Supergirl's disappointing performance. And that's where the comparison with Spider-Man: Brand New Day becomes impossible to ignore. Now, this is where many fans completely disagree with James Gunn. If superhero fatigue were really the biggest problem, then how do you explain the massive success of Spider-Man: Brand New Day? The film has already crossed the $1 billion mark worldwide, proving that audiences are still willing to show up for superhero movies if they believe the story is worth watching. That's why many critics argue this isn't superhero fatigue, it's bad superhero movie fatigue. When a film has a compelling story, likable characters, and strong word of mouth, people will still buy tickets. And according to many viewers, that's exactly where Supergirl struggled. The biggest criticism wasn't aimed at Millie Alcock's performance. It was the screenplay and the way the character was written. Many fans felt the marketing failed to generate excitement, and once early audiences shared their reactions, negative word of mouth spread quickly across social media. Timing may have also played a role. DC introduced Superman in 2025, and shortly afterward shifted the spotlight to Supergirl. Some fans believe the studio moved too fast instead of giving audiences more time to connect with the new DC universe before expanding it further. At the same time, James Gunn has an ambitious slate already moving forward. Projects like Clayface, Man of Tomorrow, Wonder Woman, Teen Titans, and several others are already in development, raising questions about whether the studio is expanding too quickly. Despite all of the criticism, Gunn remains optimistic. He says Supergirl's story isn't over yet. According to him, the film still has another opportunity to find an audience once it reaches HBO Max, and he believes streaming could introduce the movie to viewers who skipped it in theaters. Gunn also encouraged audiences to watch the film before its streaming debut, suggesting it contains important story elements that will connect directly to Man of Tomorrow next year. But for many observers, those comments sound more like damage control than confidence. When one superhero movie struggles while another reaches $1 billion during the same period, comparisons become unavoidable. Whether you agree with Gunn or not, one thing is clear. The pressure on DC Studios has never been higher, and the success of future projects may determine whether James Gunn's long-term vision can truly win audiences over. So what do you think? Is James Gunn right about superhero fatigue, or does Spider-Man: Brand New Day prove that audiences simply want better superhero movies? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to The Woke Watch, and turn on notifications for more Hollywood news and DC updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.